Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Sentinel Stories. Now, this might look a little different because you might be thinking, Miss Vester is not the one starting off this video. You'd be correct. I'm Mr. Hildebrand. You might remember me from a previous episode of Sentinel Stories. And I'm here today because I'm going to interview the one and only, the reigning queen herself, reigning queen, yes, Miss Dion Vester.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
I mean, it's true. I only speak the truth.
I appreciate it. I value your truth.
Because the year of 2021 is all about truth, right?
Ooh, I like. Okay. I can get into that. We're doing that.
Yeah, we're doing it.
We're doing it.
Awesome. So we're gonna jump right into this, Miss Vester.
Sounds
So
good.
our first question: what is your role at school, and how long have you been at Spanaway?
So I am the school social worker and also the GSA club advisor, Gender Sexuality Alliance. I'm also an equity team member with you as well. And I've been at Spanaway Lake. This is my 4th year. So I'm originally from kind of the area, and I was in Vancouver before, working down there for 10 years. And then I was in Kent, Washington for a few years. So altogether, about 15 years, if you put my experience together, but just 4 at Spanaway Lake, the best 4 so far, yeah.
Best 4.
Yeah.
Only Spanaway Lake counts. Only Spanaway Lake matters. Awesome. And what have been some of your highlights of the school year so far?
Wow, highlights. I think just how staff and students in the community has just shown up for each other. So challenging this 2020, and the start of 2021 will be a little challenging as well. Just when we've had times during the holiday, we've had the community and staff come together to help with food and gifts and clothing. I've had students that have Zoomed with me when they're facing like difficult times. I've had students come forward and just, share a lot. And I've seen a lot of student leaders step up in very amazing ways. We have a senior who wants to do some mental health initiatives. Her name's Jaden. And I just love talking with her about her passion and all of that kind of stuff. And then just doing GSA, we have some young emerging leaders. Our freshman class is really trying to share their voice early on, and even some community members that I've been able to just kind of chat with and talk to. Those have been kind of the highlights, to kind of hear their voices, hear their vision for our community, for sure.
It's so powerful to hear, like the resiliency of our kids.
Yeah.
Even to face with all of this stuff, like, so cool.
Definitely.
Awesome. Now, what were some valuable lessons you learned from high school? Positive.
So I went to high school, Federal Way High School. Federal Way in the 80s and 90s was not the Federal Way it is now. It was very much a predominantly white community that I grew up in. And so I was just a small population of BIPOC students that went to the high school. So when I reflect back on those experiences, I had a difficult time at high school, but I think it was more about kind of finding my place. In the 90s, it's very cliquey. If you watch a 90s movie, it's like, the Black students are here and the jocks are here and the theater students are here. It's just very kind of sectioned out, different, maybe a little the same, but different than it is now, especially at Spanaway Lake. So finding my place in a community of people that kind of separated themselves out based on certain things. I've come to realize that it was difficult for me because I really didn't like honor who I was or honor the things that were unique and special about me to then find my people. I found a few of them. Like I shared my true self with a few people.
Yeah.
And true self meaning like my vulnerabilities, my fears, my hopes, my dreams, the things that kind of impacted me, like my traumas, like whatever it is. There were a few that I have those friends till this day. And so part of me is I always wonder about if I lived that truth with other people that were different than me, that ran in different circles, you know, and that self-acceptance, that self-love, that self-compassion. You know, I really hope and dream for kids to feel their uniqueness and their value and all of those special qualities like right now in this moment, and then let it blossom from there instead of, you know, me waiting until a little bit later on in life to kind of say, wait a second, hold on, like people need to meet me on my terms, you know, and where I'm at in life.
Yeah. I think that is such a poignant point, really, because that is so true for so many of us, finding that self-acceptance, self-compassion, you know, well beyond high school, you know, not appreciating your uniqueness and in a you know, a like primal desire to really just want to be accepted by your peer group when
Right.
the only acceptance that matters at the end of the day is, do you accept you, you know?
Yeah. And I think I ran into like a situation with the adults that worked with me, and not all of them, but some of them, like a sense of tokenism, like as you know, I had a really good GPA. I was well behaved, for whatever that means. I was a well behaved student. I interacted in a certain way with adults that was like acceptable and tolerable. So then I became kind of like a token Black student. And so that put me, like, I don't want to say that that in itself put me in situations, because I think they also saw really good things in me, some of them that I cultivated relationships with, but then others I felt as if it was like a tokenism as well.
Totally.
And I think I look at that just because I wasn't like really secure in who I was. So then I was like, why are you asking me to do this leadership thing? Or why are you asking me to do, you know?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally that. Thank you. Oh, powerful. Now, another question. It's a sentence stem, so just respond to the sentence. We all know
All
this.
right.
So, first of all, I can help others in my school by.
Let's see. I can help others in my school by seeing how each of us as individuals influence our community as a whole. So my individual actions, how I interact with students and caregivers and community partners and district people, like how I interact and move through our school space, um, influences how our community kind of comes together and connects together. Like if I'm always kind of considering, how my actions kind of ping pong off of, like the energy ping pongs off all of the walls in the school. So, you know, staying centered and grounded and like wanting to be like grow our community, strengthen our community. That's always like really strong right now, but like seeing us grow even more. Yeah.
Totally hear all that. Awesome. Next question. I am talented at.
Oh gosh. So kind of a secret, but I guess it's not a secret anymore, is I'm actually a really good writer, and I've started writing a book, and it's a huge project, and a huge undertaking. And I would be much farther along in my book if my my fear about the end result wasn't
Mhm.
so like, ah.
Wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've shared one of my friends that I grew up with. She is a writer as well, and she's currently, her profession is a stay-at-home mom, and she does that full time and like full time. And so writing has kind of been on the back burner, but she's like read some of the things that I've written, and it was like a very vulnerable place for me to be like, because
Yeah.
it's like my life,
Yeah.
it's like a biography. And so yeah, it's yeah.
That is
So
amazing. That is so cool. And I am so excited for you. I want to read it very bad.
oh gosh, yes, I will. You know what, I will definitely let you read it by the end of this year. I will have my um the makings of my first draft most likely, and so I will let you take a sneak peek.
I would love to do that
My gosh.
because I think that is so cool and powerful. And I love people writing their stories. Like, I love memoirs. Like, I think they are, oh, so powerful. I think.
So powerful. I mean, I've read Maya Angelou's
Mhm.
memoirs. I mean, all of her, oh my gosh. I've read so many.
Yeah.
And just to hear that, people have gone through so many ups and downs in life, and um, that, what we see at the end,
Mhm.
and I'm not saying so now I'm detaching myself from this. Like, I am not these individuals, but we see like celebrity, we
Yeah.
see these prominent people, we see
Mhm.
these people that impact the community so
Yeah.
much. And then to like hear their story, their journey that led up to that moment,
Mm.
it was a lot to do with like them just mentally being here for it, and just mentally saying, I'm getting after this, this
Yeah.
is mine, I'm taking my space, I'm taking this moment,
Yeah.
and getting after it. It was all about that. And some of them had some other roadblocks,
Mhm.
but a lot of it has to do with that, like the mental roadblocks that we kind of put up for ourselves.
Absolutely. Like, and so something very topical you're making me think of is, have you seen or heard of The Queen's Gambit on Netflix?
Not yet. I saw it, so I'm watching another Netflix series, so I saw it up there.
Yeah. So number one, it's great. But the guy who produced it, it's based off a book. The guy who produced it tried to get it made into a TV show for 30 years.
Oh,
30
the
years. And
struggle.
it has now been viewed it's only been on Netflix for like 2 months, maybe.
Hmm.
And it's been viewed over 60 million times.
That's
And,
amazing.
and it took him 30 years almost to get there.
Right.
And I think it is so, like, very connected to what you're saying, right? Where we only see the end product, we are only seeing this brilliant project. We're not
Hmm.
seeing the, the years and years and years and years and years
Yeah.
of struggle, right? And
Struggle to get
the
there.
productive struggle that stems.
Right. And like athletes, musicians,
Mhm.
all of them have these very rich stories. And some of them just kind of came into the industry because they had connections and had networks already, but a lot of them have spent decades grinding in different venues
Yeah,
and
totally.
hoping for the best to get recognized. And it's, yeah, it's
And I think it's a
amazing.
cultural thing too. I feel like we so people like people so often only are like elevating like younger people, like just like automatically getting super successful, and that's like the only story we hear
Yeah.
is like not to be disparaging at all because I think they're very good. Like Billie Eilish, right? She's what, 17, 18,
Right.
and has how many Grammys already? That alone is super cool. But I think what is also equally very cool is the person who like someone like was it Morgan Freeman didn't get his first major acting role
Until
until
later in life.
his 40s or 50s even maybe. Like it's a process, right? It's
Hmm.
not going to happen for all of us in our teens, 20s, 30s. For a lot of people it happens in their 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
More I really want to read that I would, when I read it I will let you borrow it. It's called Old in Art School. It's a
Oh,
woman who retired from her job and then she's in her mid 60s and then decides I want to go to art school. I
that's
think it's
fantastic.
yeah, right? Like oh, the idea of like chapters and like how like your life doesn't end at 55.
No, like I, I retire in 22 years.
Mhm.
But I'm also thinking of like life after
Yeah.
retirement. So
Hmm.
like, making sure that I'm financially in a place to retire,
Hmm.
so that I can do the things that I want. Like if I want to write, or if I
Hmm.
want to travel, or if I want to do, certain things. I also have dreams of opening up, some type of community organization in our
Hmm.
district after I retire. Or, there's just so many different things that I think about, like
Hmm.
leading up to retirement. It's like that next chapter, that next stage for sure.
Totally. Oh, okay, we could talk about that one
I
forever.
know.
And this is again you and me. We could just talk about
We can
anything.
always talk about, yeah.
Oh my gosh. So next question. When I am afraid, I.
When I'm afraid, just speaking my truth, a lot of times I kind of shut down.
Mm,
Um, and it's all like situation. It just depends on like what it is
yeah.
I'm afraid of.
Hmm.
So if I'm afraid of taking like a big step for myself professionally or personally, it's um I really take a lot of time to reflect on
Yeah.
certain things. um but like other again, it's like one of those things where it's like mind over matter.
Hmm.
um I was really afraid of being out in the ocean.
Mm,
I grew up like watching the Discovery Channel and these beautiful like underwater scenes and
hmm.
just being mesmerized by it. And then when my mom and stepdad started dating, and we all started to travel together, he scuba dives. He's a scuba
Mm,
diver. And so he would do underwater photography and then come back, and we'd hang out and he would bring up these beautiful pictures. And then
mm,
it was like he was there. He
yeah.
was there. And what was keeping me out of the ocean was just a fear.
Hmm.
Like I was just so afraid. Um, and so when I'm afraid in those situations, I think it's like a lot of research, a lot of education,
Hmm.
a lot of, I just decided to just be spontaneous and say, I'm just going to learn how to scuba dive.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do it. And then I put it out into the universe. But for some people, it's like you say that and then you go to class and you do the classes. But for me, it was, I say that,
Hmm.
I read the scuba diving book, the Patty instructional book from cover to cover
Hmm.
before I go to class, before I start classes. I did swim lessons for a month and a half, maybe 2 months. I took swim lessons to learn all the proper strokes. I
Hmm.
knew how to tread water, like
Hmm.
fine,
Yeah.
but just like doing all of the different strokes and like my confidence in the water.
Mhm.
My swim lessons were in between, I think, like 3-year-old twins. and I was in my 20s at this time.
Yeah.
It was 3-year-old twins and like a 12-year-old. Like my private one-on-one lessons were in between them. So that was very humbling. But I did a lot of like psychological preparation, mental preparation before even entering into the classroom with the
Yeah.
instructor to then be in that space and feel
Hmm.
like strong, feel
Hmm.
like confident.
Yeah.
Um, and when people were struggling on things, it was like I could help them like navigate certain things.
Mhm.
And then when it came time to like be in the water, that was the first time I had ever been like in the ocean. I had never snorkeled out in the ocean before. I was just always like my feet were always just off the beach snorkeling. But I never been out on a boat in the middle of the deep, deep ocean.
Yeah.
And my first dive test was the first time I had ever been out in the ocean. Um, and it was the most exhilarating thing. They had to count me down off the boat um, twice. So the first time I didn't step off, you do a giant stride off the boat to get into the water. They did 3, 2, 1. I didn't step off the boat. Didn't do it. And they were like, catch your breath, catch your breath. And
Mhm.
then my class and my stepdad, he was in another dive group off to the side. And then they just collectively counted me down. It was
Oh.
like the community, I was just like, oh my God, they were cheering me on
Mhm.
in that moment. 3, 2, 1. I do my giant stride, get into the water. We make sure that we catch my breath. And then the second that we just all sink down,
Mm.
and it was like I was flying. And it was the most magical thing.
So cool.
And all I could think about was like all of the years I missed out on scuba
Mm.
diving because I was just psychologically
Yeah.
so overwhelmed by that moment. But I have almost 100 dives in. I've traveled all over the world. I get to see the most magical things and take I'm still expanding my underwater photography, but it's just one of those experiences that if I didn't just say like I'm doing this and then prepare myself to be like confident,
Yeah.
then I would have never done it.
That is so cool. I had no idea you were a scuba diver.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh. What? Oh, that
It's like I'm living a secret life from you.
apparently that needs to be a chapter in your book.
That is definitely, yeah, that will probably be a chapter in my book.
That is so cool, and now I really want to learn scuba dive because I love swimming and I love the ocean. But again, I have a very similar fear of the open ocean. The only time
Mhm.
I've gone snorkeling was when I was in high school and in Australia, and we were on the Great Barrier Reef,
Mhm.
and which is when you're out there, it feels very enclosed. Like there's lots of stuff around you. You're
Yeah.
really surrounded by reef and fish. It was very cool. But now, I need you to teach me how to scuba dive.
Yeah. We could talk about it a
Yeah,
lot.
post pandemic, obviously.
Post pandemic. Yes. Because
Yeah,
it's amazing. It's one of the best things ever.
so cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, next question.
Yeah.
When a friend is hurting, I.
When a friend is hurting, um, I just show up however they need me to show up for them. So, um, if it's laughter, if it's not a literal slap in the face, but like more of a verbal,
Yeah.
like, you know, there's times where I'll just ask, like, tell me
Mm,
what version of support do you need right
mm,
now? And give them all of the options. And they're like, in this moment, this is what I need. I mean, I've screamed with friends before, I've cried with friends before, lots of laughter. Um, I mean, you know, pre-pandemic, going on drives or just meeting somebody for a conversation. I mean, texting, sometimes I'm like, text me any hour of the night that you need. And I'll have my ringer on. And if I get something at 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm answering a text message at 2 o'clock in the morning if I hear it, And so it's like just showing up for them for however they need me to show up for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So awesome. Next one. I can achieve my goals by.
I can achieve my goals by not getting in my own way.
Preach.
Again, not letting my fears stop me from doing things.
Yeah.
And I have calendars. I can map it out. I can, map out everything. I can set little and these are like the big goal things.
Mm-hmm.
There's tasks and projects that I can plan out and achieve those and do checklists for those. But like the big ones is like by not getting in my own way.
Yeah, that is the good word. I need everyone at home. Listen,
Yeah.
I think that's a lot. That's the case for a lot of us. Awesome. So I control my anger by.
Oh, man, shutting my mouth. Gotta just stop and breathe. I have to be able to like process. I'm definitely like reflection, processing situations and moments. So if it's like mindful breathing, sometimes I have to like type something out, just to like journal it, just to kind of get that energy out. But I think it is really just like stopping and trying and just being like mindful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that is so powerful. Mindfulness, I feel like, I also feel like mindfulness, at least in like an educational sense, has gotten a bit of a bad rap.
Yeah.
Like, because I think it's just like, not like no tea, no shade, but I feel like it's just been implemented as a checkbox rather than actual practice of, and that word being so intentional, practice. It's a habit of practice. Like, mindfulness is not something our brains naturally want to do.
No, not at all.
We are literally wired to be looking forward and to be looking backwards. Like that is what our brain wants to do. And then for a moment of anger or stress or distress, that's all we're doing is we're thinking, well, like I should have done it that way, or well, blah, 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 or like, what if this happens? So like it's so important to bring that back and just and remember to breathe, because when we're angry, we don't breathe.
We don't breathe. Our heart rate, like our hearts are racing. Like me, my palms are sweating. Like I know the signs of when I start to sweat a little bit. And I'm like,
I start crying, which then people think I'm sad. I'm like, no, I need you to know that I'm so angry. It's leaking from my eyes.
Yes, for me as well. Tears happen, because anger is like that's what people are seeing, but there's like other emotions that like come together, and then it's like now I'm angry. And so I guess in that sense, thinking of like controlling my anger is like the preceding events or things that happen that could lead up to an angry outburst, like having that forethought of like, ooh, this could not go in a certain direction. So being intentional about like keeping track of things that might trigger me, making sure that you're speaking up appropriately, when you need to, and setting appropriate boundaries and all of those things ahead of time to prevent, that thing. But there's times where I just I'm quiet and I shut down, but it's because I have to because I don't want it to be like an outburst. And, as a Black woman, I also am just very intentional about that as well because, that perception of being like an angry Black woman, like, my tone and all of this, uh, like how I present frustration, like it's all very calculated at times. And so when I shut down, it's because like if I'm really hurt about something, I'm really frustrated, and if it bubbles up,
Mhm.
then I think sometimes that causes people to be like, why are you being so offended? Why are you being so defensive? Why are you being this, when like the depth of my hurt is like so real that
Yeah.
then that even triggers me, that gets
Mhm.
me upset even more, to be like, do you not see
Yeah.
what's happening right
Mhm.
now?
Yeah. Completely, because in that moment they're blaming you for your reaction, not taking credit or ownership for their own actions,
Yeah.
how they're affecting you, right?
So it's almost like an emergency switch, at the gas station. If something's happening at the gas station, the emergency button and everything shuts off.
Yep.
That's not that I'm gonna explode. Like I've never exploded in that way,
Mhm.
but like internally, that's what it feels like. And I
Mhm.
have to hit the emergency switch just to kind of shut things down, check to make sure
Mhm.
that things are okay,
Yeah.
get it kind of fixed and triaged,
Yeah.
and then we can get everything kind of loaded and going again.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Like that emotional triage. I love that.
Hmm.
That's so real. Awesome. So, next question. I help encourage others by.
Um, I think just I encourage them by, I don't know. I love to be a cheerleader for their passions, especially when, our students or people are speaking their truth, and they're so connected to something that I I just try to continue and grow that connection and that love for whatever they are like,
Yeah.
whatever path that they're on. Um, I just tried to figure out how to learn more about that path if I'm not aware, and educate myself. But then I'm kind of the cheerleader to encourage them, to listen to them, to, yeah.
Yeah. And I can vouch for that because you are like an amazing hype person. Like, you know how to make people feel real good about themselves. And I love that about you.
I am kind of a hype person, aren't I? All right.
Totally are. And that is like a gift to the universe. Need more people like Misty on Bester. Okay. And next one.
Yeah.
I am helpful to my family when.
Oh my gosh. Um, so my family, I have a 4-year-old son, and we live with my mom and my stepdad. My mom, um, she is, fighting and still in her cancer battle for 3 years now. We've been gifted, additional years. She
Mhm.
was only originally given 18 months to live in December of 2017. So every day is a gift. So we've all moved in together so that we can just live out our best lives um, together. So I think, especially like working from home, I can help my families by like, when I'm done with work at my desk, I need to just leave it here. I
Mm.
used to be able to leave school
Yep.
and have the 20-minute drive, little less than 20-minute drive, to come home and just show up
Mhm.
as mama or daughter, or like, and be that caregiver. um and so I just need to figure out how to take that moment, whether it be like a walk or
Mm.
even a short drive
Yep.
literally through my neighborhood, and like
Yeah.
do and then come back and be like, okay,
Mhm.
I'm here for you, like I'm here for you. So
Yeah. I think especially now that we're home, like, you're working from home full time. And I think there's so much to be said about just having that moment away to then
Mhm.
have that break in your day. Like it is a good psychological move for your brain, right?
Yeah,
Like, on the days I'm working from home, I go on walks. Like I'm
so
like,
good.
I need to just get out of my space. Like the day, like the very last day before break, like the second my first class was done, or my last class was done, I should say, I took a break before continuing with the rest of the work I had to finish up. And I was like, I just need to go take like a 10-minute walk
Yeah.
around a couple of blocks I live on and just breathe. I
Well,
hear you.
and that's I have to be helpful,
Mm,
and this is my intention really for this year. Like I'm not doing New Year's resolutions. My intention for
mm,
2021 is, and I'm not going to say self-care because that
mhm.
term, like mindfulness, gets overused a
Yeah,
lot, but like if I'm not taking care of mind, body, soul, like my mind, body, soul, then how do I show up for my family?
yeah.
And like how do I show up if I can't show up for my family? And then like how do I show up for like for work? Like what
Mhm.
does that look like and feel like if I'm not doing certain things to really take care of myself? So
Totally. I think that is so important, and specifically in our roles, because I think it can be so mentally and emotionally taxing. Like, and then it's really hard to show up after those days. It's really hard to show up for people, but you have to find that balance, you know?
yeah, it's a fine balance. It's a required balance,
Yeah,
definitely in our profession, and again, being intentional.
yeah,
So
absolutely. Okay. Next question. I love this one. I can make a difference by.
um continuing to use my voice.
Mm,
I uh when I first came to this district, it was I didn't know like who I could talk to, like who I could like address things with, who I could just process, have a thinking partner. Um, and there's just a lot, again, I think I said this earlier, that as a community, like that we can kind of like grow. Like we're
mhm.
already a beautiful flower, but like how do we like blossom and come back year after year? Like
Yeah,
what fertilizer do we need,
yeah, totally.
to like really make sure that we're the healthiest that we can be. And so I think just using my voice and making sure that I create platforms, I consult with people, I collaborate with people to create platforms for our community to share their voice, whether that be caregivers or students or community stakeholders, like people sharing our voice that have connection with our school.
Mm, mm,
So, I'm always trying to think of ways to elevate those opportunities. And we still there's work that we definitely need to do. I want to hear from our families. I want to hear from our
yeah.
caregivers so bad. I,
Hmm.
I and I just like trying to think of a platform to do that. It's seriously like my number one thing. I bring it up, and multiple meetings with different
Yeah.
it doesn't, if it's equity, I bring it up in an equity meeting. If it's GSA, I bring it up in GSA. If it's our Sentinel support, Sentinel response team, I bring it up there. Like whatever spaces I'm in, I bring it up because I just, yeah. So yeah, making sure that not only my voice, but everybody's voices are heard, people are seen. Yeah.
Mhm. That is so honorable. I love that. And I can be a positive role model by.
Um, you know, I I have to say is that whatever I speak, whatever advice or feedback I give to
Mhm.
students or staff, like I have to live that as well.
Mhm. Yeah.
So if I tell people, if I do some breathing activities with students and I put that out into the universe, like, hey, I wake up early in the morning and do my breathing exercises in the morning before I go to bed. I do my breathing exercises before I go to bed. I journal. I have multiple journals. I'm writing notes everywhere, like writing just your thoughts, your feelings, doing those things is critical. So being able to speak to, what I say, like I have some students that I delivered, a staff person was having a hard time as well. And so I delivered a paint by numbers,
Oh,
thing. And so I was like, I'm going to do it too.
yeah.
And it's like, I need to make sure I follow through. And it's even if I spend 15 minutes a day on it, because my old eyes, um, the numbers are it's like
They're so
really,
small.
it's so small. But that being said, even if I spend 15 minutes a day on it, I feel so accomplished.
Mhm.
And I know it's going to be like this beautiful piece of artwork that I had like 30 of them that are kind of out in our community. And I get little update pictures.
So sweet.
It's, so just whatever I suggest, making sure that I'm doing the same for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And now our final question.
Mm.
Do you have any closing thoughts or gratitude to share with our students, families, and community members?
Um, Man, I really, I was so grateful to see how people showed up for each other in 2020.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm so hopeful that 2021 just shows how we continue to do that and become stronger on the other side.
Mhm.
So, yes.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your beautiful thoughts and wisdom because you are just an absolute treasure that we are so lucky to have in our community.
Oh,
I just adore you and I
I
think you're
appreciate
the
you
best.
interviewing me,
Oh my god.
especially because you were my first interview. And I was like so nervous about doing
Mm,
it. Talk about like getting past fears and
yeah,
being
yeah,
afraid,
yeah.
and using my voice. It's not something that I do. I don't do these things. And so our first interview was like, oh my gosh, what am I getting myself into? And so when I asked you to do this for me, I was just like, okay. I was feeling the same thing. Like just before we got on the call,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, like this feeling. I remember this feeling from
Yeah.
when I saw Mr. Hildebrand before. So
Mhm.
it was overwhelming. But once again, it's like once we get going and talking,
Yeah.
it's so amazing. And thank you so much for being a support for me at Spanaway Lake and dream case scenario. I know that you have big dreams and things like that may take you away from Spanaway Lake. But if you ever dream about retiring as a teacher or something in the district, hopefully we stay connected professionally
Absolutely.
for many, many years to come because
No, we will.
there's some amazing projects and things that I would love to connect with
Mhm.
you and work with you on for our community for sure.
Yeah.
So thank you for your time. I appreciate you, friend. All right.
Anything.
I'll see you soon.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.